Hello everyone, welcome to the another video on Spring Cloud Config. In the previous video we learned that how to create the config server. We also learned how to use the properties defined on the config servers that can be used by the individual applications, and that is done using a property that we define here, and we can import the configuration from where application pick the configuration, and that way we can establish the connection between the application and the config server. So later on all the applications can use the centralized location where configurations are defined and that can be used. In today's video, the focus would be more on the config server. We want to learn how different options are available to store the configurations. Currently we are using a class path, but we don't want to use the class path. We can define the configurations on the machine itself, the server virtual machine itself, or we can define the configurations on the Git, or it can be defined on the cloud. So in today's video we will learn what are the different options and what are the way we can define the configuration. First, let us run the application. So currently it is picking the configuration from the class path. So let us run application and see the results. Application is started. Now let me go to the browser. Let me try to fetch the configuration. So currently it is picking the configuration from the class path config folder, right? So it has fetched the dev configuration and also the default configuration. Similarly, I can get configuration for the flights. So similarly I am getting the configuration, right? And my client application also should work without any problem, because client applications, it will always refer to a URL. It won't refer to any specific path. So still it is able to pick up all the configurations that we have defined on the config server, and it is fetching the configuration from this URL, and it is fetching the dev profile because we have defined that pick up the configuration from the dev. So now what we will do is, now we want to pick up this configuration from some server location. Mine is a Windows machine, so I will store somewhere on my Windows machine, and we will see that how it is able to pick up the configuration. First I will take all these property files from config folder and move somewhere on my C drive. So I have created a C drive folder, Spring Config. I will copy all these files there. So currently there are no files, so I will copy all these files there, and now I have got all the files there. Now for server to pick up these files, we have to change the URL from where it is going to. So here, if it is a Unix system, then you have to use something like this: file, then colon, and then the path of the machine from where you want to pick up that file. If it is a Windows machine, you have to add one extra slash. So file colon 3/ and the whole path. So let us go to the Windows machine. File / 3 slashes and I will copy this. So I need to add / here. I will add it and I will start a config server. So the config server has been restarted and I'll go to the browser and let us try to fetch those values. So let me try the passenger service dev profile, right? So here if you look at it, now it is picking up the configuration from the C Spring config folder, right? Same thing for the default configuration as well. If I try to fetch the flight configuration, it will also get configuration from the C Spring config folder, right? So this is how we can fetch configuration from the file system. Now, do I have to change anything on the application that uses the server property? Let us try to check. So I am starting the flight service. So it is still using the properties from this URL. So it looks like that we don't need to change anything on the client system that uses the property from the server. So the server client remains still same. We don't change anything on the client side. So this is the advantage. If we change the strategy for the server to place the property at some different locations, the client may not need to know anything about that. So this is the advantage we have when we are using this config server. Config server also provides option to store property on a Git. So here if we look at it, we can store our property on Git as well. So if I go here, config server and Git as a backend, so we can store our property on some Git server as well. So for that, what I will do first is, so here the way it has to do is you have to update your Git URI from where you want to pick up the property. So what we will do first is we will create a Git location from where we want to pick up this property. So here is my Git repository cup of Java tech. So I have created a Spring test repo. So what I will do is I will create one branch here and we will use that branch for storing the property. So from the main I will create branch 1 or test demo 1, test 1 demo. Okay, so this is my branch that I want to use. So I created this branch. I have this branch, and what I will do is I will add all the properties that I want to add files. So upload files, and I will drag and drop all the files that I had in my local machine. So I just copy all these files here. Files placed and it's placed. So this is a public repository, right? So that is why I may not need any kind of authentications. We will also try to learn that if it is a private, how we can access. But for now, let us try to learn how we can access public repository. So my files are placed on this particular branch, right? So now I will go into the application properties, and I need to make some changes in my application properties for that to work. So first thing I need to change is to change the active profile on the server. The active profile would be Git. So this is the first change I need to make. Okay, then here the native server locations may not work, so this will also require some change. So instead of the native we have to say Git, and then this also changes. So Spring Cloud config server Git, and the search location, instead of the search location we have to provide the URL. Okay, so the URI for this would be, let us try to check. I'll go to the browser and the URI is, let me go to this, and this is going to be my code and this is my URI, right? So that I will use into the application. And with this also, let us see, this is the demo test demo one, that is the branch that I am using. Okay, so just remember that we will need that as well. So the first thing is the URI that we need to use, so that we placed here. Now the another thing is, if you don't provide the branch name, then by default it is using a default branch as a main branch. So default is a main branch, but we are not using the default branch, so we need to change the default branch as well. So for that we have to use one more property, and that is default label. And the default label is, let us go back again, I forgot what was that. So that is a test demo. So I'll go and change that here. So this will be okay. Let us, only these two changes are required, as my repository is public, I don't need to add anything else. So let me try to check now whether my server is getting started. So the server has been started, and let us see, are we able to fetch those files. So yes, so now if you look at it, now it is fetching file from the https github cup of java tech spring test repository and flight. So here it did not give us a location of the branch, right? That we need to provide into the application. Similarly, I can fetch the application for passenger service as well. So same way we are able to fetch the passenger service properties as well. So this is how we can fetch property for different applications. We also can add few more properties when we are using some cloud services for storing our property. So one of them is forceful. So this will make sure that forcefully it will try to connect to the server and try to check this particular repository is existing or not, and then it will also try to clone it into the system itself, so that the performance would be better. So now if I start it, it may not have any change, but my client application performance would be faster. So here let me go back again into server. Now if I'm trying to fetch, it is much more faster. So if you had seen it earlier, it was taking little bit time, because on the first attempt it tries to pull all the cloning all the properties into the local system. Let me try to show you something more. For example, I change this to some property that does not, some Git repository that does not exist, and if I try to restart again, it will complain right here. So here it complained here, right? Now if I disable it, and now if I restart it, it will not complain, because it is not trying to making attempt to connect to the Git at first attempt. When it tries to connect is when I try to access the property. So here if I try to access it now, it is failing, and now it is giving me that error. So this is the difference, right? So in the first attempt itself, it will try to make sure that this repository exists there. Okay, so that we have seen. Okay, so this is how we can use. There are more properties as well, but you can definitely go to the the documentation, and you can find it out more. So this is the bare minimum we should use when we are using Git or any other cloud system. So we learned that how to access the Git public repository and fetch all the properties. We also check how we can fetch properties on the config server through some file system. So this is all I wanted to discuss in this video. In the next video, we will see how we can fetch private repository through SSH. So thank you for watching this video.